Anyway, just the usual stream, Monday stream, basic Mondays today. Didn't do it last week, feeling a bit groggy today, so when I'm lazy, I do basic workout. As long as I do something, that's all that matters in the end. Good. Gonna be doing the usual push-ups, plyometrics today. So push-ups, jumping lunges, usual ab workout. Um, Most likely leg raises and crunches. And for the fourth exercise, I'll see how I feel by the end of it. I'll see what I'm doing. Did shoulders on the weekend, so I didn't worry about that today. Didn't stream it, just thought I'd just do it on the side, just shoulders. Did my forearm workout as well, so I'm glad I'm always getting that done because I find that to be most helpful as a therapist when treating my patients. My hand grip strength has gotten a lot better in the last, I'd say, 6 months. So I'm training grip strength, so I highly recommend that for any manual therapist. Yeah, that's where I can much use a grip. Stress ball for flexors and elastic bands for the extensors. Always good to train both. Never don't just train the big power producing muscles. You need the muscles on the other side that control that. If they're not working out as well, it's like getting a problem on the other side. I think what else? Well, as usual, I've been listening to stuff in the background, usually news and whatnot, with music and whatnot. So far the algorithm hasn't been too bad. When I have both things on, I've got no idea how it listens in on this. This is where I might feel. But anyway, it's been working. So, better than watching me, but with no sound on, I guess. Let me get started. I want to get this done. Do some other stuff later. Join in. Ask me anything. Send me a message. Follow. Whatever you like.
Hi students, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and you need to know something before we jump into it, and that is someone right now is inside me. And I don't mean like a little voice trying to get out, but rather a man has a camera up my butt. Also, to be clear, this is not me officially launching my OnlyFans, rather I'm getting a colonoscopy, so if anything is wrong in this video, you can blame my team, those horrible monsters, making sure you still get a show while I'm at the doctor. Also, I need to drink the 2 of these over the next few hours, and according to one person on Instagram, you'll feel fine, and then suddenly it kicks in and your asshole opens a portal to another dimension. The event horizon sucks everything out of that other dimension, and that dimension is made of shit. So here we go. Oh man, I timed this out poorly. This is like a race. Cheers. TikTok, bitch, let's jump into it. If Twitch doesn't get sued for this, I'm gonna be shocked. First, the TwitchCon happened over the weekend. Massive gathering and celebration of all things Twitch, right after they cut the pay for a lot of their big creators. While numerous things went down there, which is something you'd expect since so many people were streaming from this event, and all of a sudden you have all these other creators. One of the biggest things that happened, and possibly one of the most costly things for Twitch that happened, was this. You see Adriana Chechik jump off after winning, and you watch that and you're kind of like, okay, wait, what's happening? Why is she having a hard time moving? Well, apparently she broke her back. Chechik later tweeting, well, I broke my back in 2 places and I'm getting surgery to put a metal rod in for support today. Send your support. When it rains, it pours, and I am definitely feeling the rain right now. Soon after, the other girl that was in the pit, EdieBot, she tweeted, I'm the other girl in the video and a friend of Adriana. She would love to hear from other people who were injured in the same pit. Please DM me if you know anyone else who got hurt. I fell very lightly and still felt a jolt up my back and had pain for the rest of the night. You also saw another creator saying, my friend dislocated her knee in this thing. Creator Swin Diesel tweeting, I was filming from a different angle. The foam pit isn't deep enough, so you really see her bounce off the concrete floor, wishing her a speedy recovery. And it's going to be interesting to see if more and more creators start speaking out, if all of a sudden other people are claiming injury. And then what happens from there? Do we see a massive lawsuit regarding negligence? So right now, Twitch is seemingly trying to shift the blame over to Lenovo and Intel, which are both running the booth, with Twitch redirecting news outlets to Lenovo's PR team. But also, I don't know how effective that's going to be because the event was fucking called TwitchCon. And I imagine people aren't just going to let them off the hook. And also with this, yes, well, some of the people who got into the pit have claimed they had to sign a waiver first. It still doesn't change the fact that no one shut this down after the first person got injured. So you've got this question of could they have prevented more people from getting hurt, as well as a number of other questions, including was this ever safe in the first place based off of how they built it? Or there could have even been a legitimate expectation of safety. But ultimately, that is where we are. We'll have to wait to see what happens, see what questions get answered. answered, and until we do, I'd love, of course, to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts with this mess? And then Kanye got locked out of his social media over anti-Semitism. I've talked about Kanye's recklessness for years. Still not a sentence that I ever expected to say. A Meta spokesperson telling multiple outlets that while his Instagram page is still visible, they deleted content from it, and the restriction could also prevent him from posting, commenting, or messaging on the app. Though the spokesperson declined to say what particular rule was violated. But there, many have pointed to a deleted post Kanye shared that depicted a text exchange between him and P. Diddy, who notably was among the many people who criticized him for those White Lives Matter shirts. And in that text exchange, Kanye suggests that P. Diddy is being controlled by Jewish people. With that also coming after Kanye reportedly made other anti-Semitic remarks that perpetuated Jewish stereotypes during an interview with Tucker Carlson. The American Jewish Committee also calling him out for these comments, saying Kanye West's week has consisted of incoherent rants laden with racist and anti-Semitic undertones made on the country's top cable news program and anti-Jewish posts shared to his 18 million followers on Instagram. These posts are dangerous, but getting restricted from Instagram didn't stop Kanye, who just took the party over to Twitter on Friday night, posting a picture of a 2024 hat, some saying, oh, is this like him talking about his intentions to run for president again? Then sharing a photo of him and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg and saying, look at this, Mark, how are you gonna kick me off Instagram? After posting that, he quickly got a warm welcome from Elon Musk, as Kanye had been off of Twitter for a while. But rather than just saying hi back and maybe going to sleep or doing something else, he then, on Saturday, tweeted out, I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going to DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jews also. You guys toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda. So some, fun, unexpected anti-Semitism, and unsurprisingly, that post was removed from Twitter. Though he did just keep going on, tweeting who you think created cancel culture, which many interpreted as him suggesting that Jewish people created cancel culture, with then tons of people calling him out saying things like, Kanye West has 3 million followers. He just said that he is coming to get the Jews. 6 million Jews were murdered in gas chambers within a human lifetime. People are saying ignore Kanye because he is sick and a clown. They say he isn't serious. These people are deluded. Which is part of a thing that's been said for a while, right? Yeah, Kanye is struggling with mental health issues, but that doesn't excuse this. People saying things like, is Kanye West mentally ill? Yes. Does mental illness generally lead people to threaten violence against women and Jews? No. I'm sorry for what he's going through, but it's not an excuse for his behavior. And to pretend otherwise is an insult to anyone with mental illness. And all of that leading to the news that he was locked out of his Twitter account on Sunday. Yeah, as of recording, that's where things are. And I wouldn't expect anything other than more of this moving forward. Like, it used to be Kanye West would come out of the wilderness, come back on social media, and just kind of cause havoc in anticipation of an album release. But then I think somewhere along the line he realized, oh, I can use this as a weapon, and now he enjoys fighting and just the chaos. And why wouldn't he continue to do it? Because as long as he releases somewhat relevant music, people seem to forgive him. And I don't mean the people that like the shit that he's saying now. I'm talking about the people offended by it. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what excuses people make for it. Because he headed down this road a long time ago, but it feels like this man ain't been the same since Obama called him a jackass. And then the situation in Iran is escalating. On Saturday night, hackers apparently took over the state news outlet to send a message to millions of Iranians through their television. First flashing a mysterious-looking masked figure reminiscent of V for Vendetta, then showing an image of the country's supreme leader enveloped in flames, as well as the faces of Mahsa Amini, the woman whose death tipped off the protest, and 3 other women killed during the unrest, along with the caption, join us and stand up, alongside text criticizing the supreme leader. All the while, a song plays with the lyrics, woman, life, freedom, and now signature protest chant. And all this coming the same day the Iranian president, that Holocaust-denying piece of shit that we talked about when this first flew up, and he spoke at the University of Tehran, where he decided to calm things down by kindly reciting a poem that equates rioters with flies. For the female students there, those bamps in the audience, they had none of it, ripping off their hijabs and shouting at him to get lost. And all of this followed the authorities finally wrapping up their investigation into Amini's death, where they claimed that it was caused not by beating her head against a car with batons, but rather saying no, it was a pre-existing medical condition stemming from a surgery that she had when she was 8 years old, with the general response being bullshit. As it appears those lies on their own are not going to be enough to extinguish the rage that people are feeling right now as the protests continue to sweep the country. And unfortunately, the death toll from clashes between police and protesters as of Saturday reached at least 185, including at least 19 children, according to one human rights group. This is happening as reports are coming out of Iran that are horrific. There are police attacking students, chasing schoolgirls, even menacing a pregnant woman whose husband pleaded not to hit her. And so as all of this continues, I want to say my well wishes, and I want to send good luck to those brave demonstrators out there entering their now 4th week of resistance. And then, online banner ads, sidebars, and pop-ups are everywhere, from mainstream news sites to less than legal torrent hubs. Most are just colorful distractions, but some are malvertising ads created to infect your device with malware and viruses. So how do you block these dangerous sites and get peace of mind? Well, that's where our fantastic partner and sponsor of today's show, NordVPN, or more direct directly, NordVPN.com/Phil comes in. Right, an attacker will create a convincing advert containing hidden lines of malicious code and find a way to feature their content on a legitimate site. And then when you click the ad, you'll be directed to a dangerous server from which the rest of the attack will be launched. But with NordVPN's threat protection service, you can block dangerous sites and limit advertising, giving you a cleaner, safer browsing experience. But also, slow down and exercise some caution. A healthy dose of skepticism will go a long way to keeping yourself secure. But hey, protect yourself from malvertising and head on over to NordVPN.com/Phil to get a huge discount off a 2-year plan and wait for it, 4 extra months free. It is seriously an incredible deal, so remember that. It's NordVPN.com/Phil. It's all risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And then, is social media a good poison? Right, we already know that social media takes a toll on our mental well-being. Everyone shouts this from the rooftop while also injecting it directly into their veins. Numerous studies linking it to depression, anxiety, and loneliness. We have finding after finding showing frequently online people are generally less happy than those who spend more time away from their screens. But it can also be a tool to combat those very things. And given that today is World Mental Health Day, I figured we could dive into this a little more. There are billions of views on mental health related hashtags on TikTok alone, and so rather than just me talking out of my ass like I love to do because it's just so fun, I figured we should reach out to mental health experts and actually talk about this idea that social media is rotting our brains, but that there's also a benefit, that it can be used to actively fight against that and for us to better ourselves. Or we have Dr. Melissa Shepard. She's a psychiatrist and therapist who's active online herself with over 1.5 million followers on TikTok. She posts educational videos as well as content about her own struggles, and while she noted the obvious consequences to social media, she also said it can open doors. It allows us to connect with people who might know what we're going through, and Dr. Shepard says she posts in hopes sharing her story might help others feel less alone.
I feel like if I can say, hey, I haven't always felt okay. Things have been rough. Like, it can happen to anybody. I hope that what that does is destigmatizes these issues for other people.
And the idea that people might use this as a springboard to go and get help is a huge motivator for a lot of creators in this space, including mental health professionals. Though, notably, this is not a process without its complication. As places like the University of Texas Health Center at Houston have noted, social media has led to a lot of people diagnosing themselves with mental health disorders. And this can lead tons of people falling down unhelpful Google rabbit holes that might further increase their anxiety or lead them in the wrong direction. And as Dr. Pamela Rutledge, a media psychologist, explains, people have an inclination to see themselves in other issues, and that can lead to issues with self-diagnosis.
We have a natural cognitive bias, the way our brain works, to think that everything is like us, and some, so a lot of this, oh, that's just like me, is really a cognitive bias. But at the same time, if someone is self-diagnosing, it can be dangerous if they then also self-medicate or if they self-prescribe treatments.
Which is why with all of this, it is recommended to seek professional help if you think you're struggling, because as Dr. Shepard explains,
I've had to go through so much training to be able to diagnose people, and it's because some of these disorders are really, really complicated, and because there's so much overlap. So I think that can be a struggle no matter where you're getting the information from. I think self-diagnosis in general is probably better thought of as like increasing your self-awareness.
That's something Dr. Rutledge touched on as well, right? You can use this to become more aware of your feelings, but you need to ask questions with a professional, explaining that not everyone who feels down is depressed, and not everyone who feels nervous is anxious, and one TikTok probably can't tell you the difference.
It's really, great to become aware, great to have more self-awareness, to ask yourself questions. How do I feel? All of that is great. But then don't just rely on your interpretation of somebody else's interpretation of a mental illness. That's sort of like telephone games.
And that telephone game can lead to muddled understandings of what certain disorders are, which is why Dr. Shepard and others really drive home. You can't just see something online, decide you have a certain disorder, and call it a day, or rather you can, but it's not going to be good. Once again, it's not to shit on the whole thing. I think social media can be a good first step to getting help.
So if you see a video that resonates with you, say it's about ADHD, and you're like, this really sounds familiar. I can kind of relate to this. I wonder if I might have ADHD. That can be a really valuable starting point in helping you say, okay, maybe this is something I need to get more information on. Maybe it's something I can reach out to my doctor and talk about. But I do think there's something that clicks in your brain when you see, okay, this other person just listed out all of these things that I've always struggled with my entire life, and they gave it a name. And that's incredibly powerful to have like an understanding of what could possibly be going on. And so my hope is that those people would then take that information and reach out to someone.
Which actually brings us to the question, why do people turn to TikTok and social media for mental health solutions in the first place? Well, for young people, it's kind of where they go for everything. I mean, Gen Z is increasingly turning to TikTok as a search engine over Google. And on top of that, for people in the United States, it's not always easy to come by affordable, quality healthcare. Young people also see social media as a page one.
It's scary for a lot of people to reach out and like take that first step, especially if you're not really sure what's going on, you're not really sure if you need the help. Like, it can be a little bit less scary, kind of like dipping your toe in the water, to kind of investigate some of this stuff on social media on your own.
TikTok can also be more personal than other forms of media. As you stumble across videos on your For You page, yes, it was made to reach the masses, but it can almost feel like it was specifically designed for you.
On TikTok, people are talking to you. It isn't like you're listening to someone in an interview and they're looking at, the interviewer. They're looking right at the audience, which makes it feel very personal.
And there are pros and cons to this media being very snackable.
Good news is that you can get something very simple and understandable. Bad news is that sometimes that is out of context. And so if you don't have a larger picture, you can make mistakes or misjudgments about what that means.
Which is why a key thing is that people need to be aware of what they're reading and where their information comes from. But the good thing is that the more people see discussion about mental health online, the more comfortable they might feel to join it.
Gen Z has a pretty amazing sense of dark humor, and I think that comes out on TikTok quite a bit. But it does take away some of the power and the sting from some of these really horrible illnesses that can really do a whole lot of damage to people, by saying like, hey, we're bigger than you, we're able to joke about you, we're able to joke about the traumatic things that we've been through.
But ultimately, that is where that story, and actually today's show ends. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one, or really anything else that stood out to you today. As always, thank you for watching, like, and being subscribed to my daily dives into the make sure you hit that subscribe button, otherwise we'll punch you in the throat. And let's just jump into it. Please do not watch Hocus Pocus 2. That is what one Texas mom, Jamie Gooch, is screaming from the rafters.
It grieves me, the thought of exposing our kids to darkness. A worst case scenario is that you unleash hell. The whole movie is based on witches harvesting children for blood sacrifices. I believe whatever comes in our TV screens, there are things attached to that. I've seen for myself the things that I've watched with my eyes or heard over a TV screen, they become manifested in real life. Everybody thinks it's fake and innocent, but they could be casting any type of spell that they want to. Anything could be coming through that TV screen into your home. At the end of the day, I want people to walk away with discernment. If you're watching this, just start thinking. Start thinking for yourself, and even overthink.
Mama Gooch, what you doing? I know we're always like, but think of the children, but maybe Jamie Gooch could not. The Goochmeister, I think, can sit this one out. Also, this is someone who is raising children. A person who felt not only confident enough to post something on Facebook, but go on local television to be like, yes, the Disney Plus movie is casting demonic spells directly into your children's eye holes. Anyway, that's the story. That person has the same vote as you, just so that's a fun thing. Moving on. And then, robots are going to kill us. Like, are we on the same page here? The only way robots don't kill us is if we do it first, or like an asteroid hits us. Because like, remember those fun little robots, and they're like, oh, it kind of looks like a dog. Oh, look, it's dancing. Well, like with every tech advancement, people looked at it and they were like, but how do we get it to kill and or harass poor people? Though that's not fair. Not just poor people, but probably poor people first. I mean, since those early days, we've seen things like this new viral video showing a Chinese drone carrying something underneath it and dropping it off on a rooftop, with that strange object then unfurling, and what in the whole... That's a robot dog with a machine gun. I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time. Hug your children. Yeah, that video was posted to Weibo recently by the China Kestrel Defense Company, and as the caption explains, the war dog can be inserted behind enemy lines for a surprise attack, placed on rooftops to occupy the commanding heights, or support a three-dimensional pincer attack on a building. Right, in China, they put loudspeakers on these robot dogs to tell people, hey, wash your hands, wear masks, and now, machine guns. So that's stupid. China also isn't the only country to produce videos like this. Some months ago, we had a Russian tech entrepreneur showing off a robot dog popping off targets with a submachine gun. Also, just to really hit it directly on the nose, he nicknamed it Skynet. And if you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, they do look a lot like the Boston Dynamics robots that we saw dancing dogs out in Fun a few years ago, they are similar, but not the same. In fact, last week, the company signed an open letter with 5 other robotics makers pledging not to weaponize the hardware or software behind their advanced mobility general purpose robot. Basically, reaffirming a commitment that it made a long time ago, but that also didn't stop the French military from using it in reconnaissance drills last year, or did it stop the NYPD from deploying them to respond to a home invasion and enter a public housing building during the pandemic, where actually in that case there was backlash from residents pressuring the city police to end the contract, with AOC, who represents a district in New York, tweeting, "Please ask yourself, when was the last time you saw next generation world-class technology for education, healthcare, housing, etc. consistently prioritized for underserved communities like this?" But also, that's just one police force. Several other law enforcement agencies have tested or actually deployed robot dogs, including Border Patrol and police in Massachusetts, Honolulu, Singapore, and the Netherlands. Plus, at least one American company, Ghost Robotics, is flirting with arming these puppies. Last year, showcasing their gun-mounted robo-dog at the Association of the United States Army's annual conference. And that same dog, though, without the firearm, was put on a patrol duty at an Air Force base in Florida the year before. And here's one of the key things to take away. While governments seem to be embracing this technology in some capacity, the weaponization of it is lagging behind, but that's probably not going to last. Or because it's only a matter of time until some country, let's say China, releases a video of its military with one of these, and then someone at the Pentagon's gonna go, "Hey, why the fuck don't we? We gotta kill their robot dogs with our robot dogs, or maybe better yet, robot dinosaurs. Why the fuck not?"
What are you talking about?
And then, bing bang boom, robot wars, obviously. And then, political fallout in LA right now is wild. They didn't see audio of City Council President Nuri Martinez making racist remarks was leaked. The audio is from October 2021, and it captures a moment where Martinez and other Latino council members were venting their frustrations at a proposed redistricting map. It seems like they didn't realize that they were being recorded, and during this meeting, Martinez criticized white council member Mike Bonin as a little bitch and claimed that he treated his black son like an accessory, and then saying,
They're not doing that. Yeah, no, they're not doing the kid bouncing off the effing wall on the floor. They're practically tipping it over. There's nothing you can do to control him.
I didn't know this initially because I guess I just didn't get to that part of Duolingo, but that last part was a very big deal because it means he looks like a monkey. So some might try to give Martinez the benefit of the doubt and point out that in this context, it could also mean he seemed/acted like a monkey in reference to how the boy allegedly acted, but also unless there's a cultural difference I'm missing in the language, I can't see how that's better. But also, you generally do not get the benefit of the doubt when that's just the tip of the racist iceberg. Because when talking about Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon, Martinez said, "Fuck that guy, he's with the blacks." Martinez didn't just say these things for her colleagues, but also for Los Angeles voters. When speaking about Koreatown residents, where much of the population are mixed indigenous peoples from Oaxaca and Central America, she perpetuated stereotypes about the group in this exchange with Councilmember Gil Cedillo.
I see a lot of little dark people.
She then went on to question how they got here and described them as so ugly. And a key thing here is it wasn't just Martinez being derogatory. Councilmember Kevin De Leon also criticized how Bonin allegedly treats his son by claiming that he uses the boy like a Louis Vuitton bag. And this whole incident has provided a window into kind of how the sausage is made in politics and has left many residents understandably pissed. And so we ended up seeing widespread calls for Martinez to resign, and she actually announced her resignation yesterday, but only as the president of the LA City Council. In a statement, apologizing for her remarks and adding that as someone who believes deeply in the empowerment of communities of color, I recognize my comments undercut that goal. But still, for many, it wasn't enough, and they are demanding that she completely step down from office. And of course, with this being a developing situation, just as I was reporting today, we learned that she will now be taking a leave of absence. But again, for many, that's still short of fully resigning. And as for the others that were present there are concerns that not only did they not call out her comments instantly, but in De Leon's and LA County Federation of Labor President Ron Herrera's case actually participated, leading them to also issue apologies for the situation, and Herrera has actually now resigned. And De Leon may follow his lead because based on this video, he's really not wanted
I've
anymore.
only listened to like 3 songs.
Get the
Well, I'd say 5.
you!
And YouTube's like, are you still listening?
Resign, you racist piece of shit! You don't represent Los Angeles, Kevin!
There's also been organizations using the situation as a chance for Latinos to be introspective about their own colorism and racism, whereas others, like the LA County Federation of Labor, pulled a kind of a reverse Uno and were furious that a recording was taken at all, saying it was in violation of California's privacy and recording laws on LA County Federation of Labor property, and warned that reposting it is condoning this illegal conduct. But also, the fucking cat's out of the bag here, and reporting on the recordings is not condoning this illegal conduct. Otherwise, no leaks would ever be reportable, you fucking idiot. Sorry, I don't know why I got so fucking heated. Either way, with the elections just around the corner, it is likely that they could have serious consequences for the LA political scene. And as far as what the full fallout to this situation will look like, we're gonna have to wait and see it until we see more. Of course, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. And then, when we moved, we got overwhelmed with all the boxes of old pictures and VHS tapes that we collected over the years. And yes, VHSs. My dad used to give me a few bucks to organize the closet of them. You know, there's so much collected over the years, and I'm like, there's some really great memories here, most I hadn't seen in decades. And the memories that I want to share with my family for generations, and I know I'm not alone here, so I think it's a great time to thank a fantastic sponsor of today's show, Legacy Box. Legacy Box is the simple and safe way to convert your memories to a thumb drive, the cloud, or even a DVD. It takes all your old memories and digitizes them, keeping them safe for future generations, and I think it's the best way to preserve your past. And I think it's pretty cool that my kids can watch a timeline of Lynn's and me growing up, footage of our wedding and our family growing together, capturing all the family vacations, the milestones, the graduations, the first dances, all in one place. Because I will say, especially as a parent, I don't know where time goes, both for myself, but also it feels like with kids, like they're different people every 2 years. When I get a chance to like look back, I can't help but smile. And sadly, I know people who have lost photos and tapes and fires or other natural disasters, or they just lost them. You don't have to just let your photos fade away. There's something you can do about it before it's too late. Buy a Legacy Box today. Visit legacybox.com/DeFranco to shop this exclusive offer. That's legacybox.com/DeFranco. And then we've also got Kanye staying in the news right now, some of which unsurprisingly connected to his anti-Semitic comments he made recently. People sharing this now viral clip of actress Jamie Lee Curtis responding to Kanye's remarks on the Today Show.
I burst into tears. I woke up and burst into tears. DEFCON 3 on Jewish people? What are you doing? I woke up and I thought, my grandparents?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just abhorrent.
Yeah.
It's abhorrent behavior. I hope he gets help.
We also had the Holocaust Museum of Los Angeles posting a statement inviting Kanye over to discuss why what he said was so dangerous, saying, "Words matter and words have consequences, yay. The Holocaust started with only words that sadly begat stereotypes, racial and religious tropes, and blaming others and led to the murder of 6 million Jews. Your words reach millions and you can choose to incite or you can choose to inspire." Also regarding the power of words, some of the words that Kanye shared affecting something more at home. With reports coming out that Kim Kardashian is now reportedly paying for increased security at their kids' school. Though not because Kanye poses a specific threat himself, but rather because he posted the name of their school on social media amid his recent rants. So now that the public has access to that information, people are worried. People are saying there is an increased risk, not just for Kim and Kanye's kids, but for every other student and teacher at that school. Are you going to have random weirdos showing up at this school? And it's why so many people are going, well, why is Kanye going to just get away with this, basically doxing his children and their classmates? People saying he's just actively endangering them. He's doing all this for no reason, though some have said, while it could be just complete chaos in Kanye, this could also potentially be something that Kanye wants for the kids not to feel okay there. Because one of the complaints that he has is he wants his kids to attend Donda Academy, a non-accredited private school that he started. Which is why you had some saying it looks like he's adding pressure to the situation to try and get what he wants. And yeah, that's the situation. I got nothing new to say on this. This has been Kanye. And I just love the fact there's still people out there like, I can't believe Kanye's doing this. Really? You can't? Okay. Also, wild to me that the anti-Semitic garbage coming out of his face right now, still not a line too far for some. And then, TikTok doesn't just want your time, it wants all of your money. Because according to a new report from Axios, they're trying to become the next Amazon, with TikTok looking to build global fulfillment centers in Seattle and Los Angeles. Also, more than a dozen LinkedIn job postings have been found for TikTok for positions like Operations Research Engineer and Logistics Solution Manager. And according to the listings, TikTok plans on providing warehousing, delivery, and returns for merchants to ensure the fast and sustainable growth of TikTok Shop. And honestly, this is an expected evolution if you look to like what's happening in China. And then you look back here and you see TikTok's been moving towards e-commerce for a while. It has an active relationship with Shopify, a potential partnership with TalkShop Live for live shopping in the US. And while the platform's live shopping feature is popular in Asia, it's not seeing the same interest in the UK and the US. But I really think that it's just a matter of time till it pops off here. At which time, yeah, if nothing else changes, this could be a potential threat to Amazon. Especially because according to Axios, TikTok seems to be developing a free return program like Amazon, though at this time, it doesn't look like it's going to be building out its own form of ground transportation. So is it a threat to Amazon? Yes. Is it going to replace Amazon? No. Is it going to dent it? I think so, at least if they do it right. And then, the midterms are next month, and you can't vote if you don't register by today in 10 states. So if you watching live in Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas, and you haven't registered, do it literally now. Also, if you think you're registered or not, go here and check, because there are actually a number of people every year that are like, what? All I got kicked off a voter roll, something. And while these other 20 states do allow same-day registration, it's actually already too late for some. Right? In Alaska, Mississippi, and Rhode Island, it's already too late to register. And if you haven't seen your state yet, that's because there's about a dozen other states that have deadlines before the end of this month. In fact, even some by the end of this week, so definitely go click that link in the description. Also, I'm not going to shame you for waiting to the last minute because this is embarrassing. There's this non-profit group out there, Headcount, that's trying to boost voter turnout and registration. They work with tons of celebrities. They actually offered to pay for a prize of my choosing that could go to one lucky, beautiful bastard that just went to their site to make sure that they were registered. I just didn't contact them back because I'm a dumb fuckhead. Luckily, they also reached out to other celebrities who had the decency, or at least people around them to contact them back, including the likes of Billie Eilish, who partnered with the organization to get fans attending her concerts this summer registered, where they're issuing a statement encouraging everyone to use their voices and adding with what's going on in our country, we need to get out to the polls and vote for what we believe in. Not showing up is not an option. This isn't a new thing for the org. Before we went around hitting people with heavy machinery, they teamed up with David Dobrik, who gave away Teslas. This year, they also worked with other creators like Matt Pat and Harry Styles. That's right, Matt, you're both equals. That's why I use you both in the same sentence. So Harry's incentivizing his fans to register and check their registration status by giving them a chance to win tickets to Harry Ween. Hey, since I'm the asshole who didn't contact them back and I can get the glory of saying I signed up this number of people, my recommendation would be either to register or check your registration. Go to headcount.org. Ideally, using my specific link in the description down below to give credit to the beautiful bastard that tried to loop me in. And who knows, maybe it'll still track and it'll give me something to potentially give away to one lucky bastard. But also, either way, at the very least, you will know that you're prepped and registered to vote and be a part of the world and vote into existence the world you want to see. Or at least try, because really that's all we get to do in this life. Some in other places don't even get that privilege. And here's the thing, movements like this apparently are very effective. With HeadCount's co-founder Andy Bernstein telling reporters, in 2020, 78% of the people that HeadCount registered turned out to vote. So we know these artist partnerships are effective. And also adding that the organization has already reached a new record high of registered voters for a midterm election this year, clocking a total of 150,000, which is huge because the previous record was 89,000. But ultimately, that is where that story and today's show ends. As always, thank you for watching, liking, subscribing to my daily dives into the news. You can also keep getting your news fix here, but no matter what, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. You beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up. Make sure you hit that like button, otherwise I will punch you in the throat. Let's just jump into the news. Adriana Chechik was actually way more injured than previously believed. We talked on Monday about her injury at TwitchCon. She's doing what seems to be some fun foam jousting. She wins, she jumps, and she reportedly breaks her back. You see her just laying there, obviously in pain. She tweets that she's going to have surgery to get a metal rod for support. Notably, she was just one of several people that got injured at this thing. But now we know even more because Adriana tweeted late last night. Surgery went well, 5.5 hours, more fusions than expected, bones completely crushed, and nerve damage to my bladder. Hopefully, I'll be able to pee again in the near future. Had some bleeding around the bone, but overall doing good, and adding she's going to have a brace on for a long time. So with her recovery now started, one of the biggest questions is, who's gonna fucking pay? People pointing the finger at Lenovo, Intel, the venue, Twitch itself, or possibly a sharing of fault. Also, regarding whether she or other people have a case, I think something that's incredibly important is a number of attorneys are now saying, yes, she probably does have a case. With creators and injury lawyers like attorney Tom over on YouTube saying, even if this person signed a waiver, that would not protect the parties responsible from negligence. And saying that the foam pit here is the definition of negligent design. And hey, when it comes to the United States, I'm not a fan of how overly litigious our country can be, but this seems pretty fucking straightforward to me. Like, isn't it the bare minimum expectation that if you're going to have a thing where the intended thing is for people to fall, that a design would be used to absorb the fall, ideally in a way that doesn't result in broken bones? But yeah, we'll see what happens. And then tax the cow farts, and while you're at it, tax their burps as well. That is apparently...
It's talking about some Twitch person jumping to a foam pit. And supposedly scans reveal crushing of her spine and that. And now they're looking into legalities and who should owe what. Talking about how maybe the foam pit should have been more designed better, but sometimes patients might just come in with something that it's about to go already, and it just needs the smallest thing to set it off, i.e. this foam pit. It's like when I talk about those stroke patients that come and see chiropractors, and how like it's sort of like a high rate that come and see chiropractors, same with medical practitioners. And then you get that story about how a chiropractor was an adjustment, patient suffers a stroke. Very unfortunate event, and a lot of the blame gets thrown to the chiropractor. What's overlooked is sometimes some of these patients, like that back break, they might have a condition that they already have that's about to come one way or another. And obviously these patients, they're going to go seek help, and obviously they go to people with expertise that are knowledgeable in that area, i.e. again, medical doctors or chiros, even physios, doesn't matter, any medical practitioner almost. But yeah, they end up suffering what they suffer, but again, who knows what caused it? Was it going to come anyway? Or was it the chiropractor that caused the issue? Not excusing all chiros, there are some that are near and far. Obviously you want to go to the right one, but even sometimes you can go to the best chiro. The patient still might get a stroke if it was going to come regardless. Anyway, might as well spew there.
What they're going to be doing in New Zealand, where the country is trying to combat climate change, promising to go carbon neutral by 2050. To do so, they've been looking closely at their greenhouse gas emissions, and they found in a study from 2019 that 88.4% of methane emissions came from livestock, and 65% of that number just came from cattle digestion, cow farts. And so the Prime Minister has proposed taxing farmers for the emissions their livestock produce, saying the proposal would see New Zealand farmers lead the world in reducing emissions, delivering a competitive advantage, and enhancing our export brand. And the key thing here is this would be the first tax on livestock emissions in the world. Though the EU and the United States have made plans to lower greenhouse gas emissions within the farming industry, though not related to livestock specifically. Now, New Zealand is home to about 10 million cows, and farmers so far are less than
kids and suffering depression is quite a real thing at the moment. One of my patients who teaches rugby to the under 12s is also a bit of a speaker when it comes to suicide and depression. It's honestly, it is unfortunate because kids from, they're saying in this study, 8 to 12 years old should be checked for depression. So around that teenage age, but like 8 to 12, like you're in primary, you're barely getting into high school. I mean, I get it, like every household has different stresses and whatnot. Don't know what people are suffering behind closed doors, but 12 years and younger. That person that gave talk about suicide and depression had to give it to a certain team that I don't know of, but had to give a talk to a bunch of kids about how because one of the 12-year-olds in their rugby committed suicide. The patient mainly said it's due to like online stress and whatnot, so take that as you will, but it is a world that younger kids are getting into now, especially with the pandemic lately, being indoors and whatnot. it's a much easier world to sort of lose yourself into, and it's unfiltered. It's the problem. Needs to put in context for a lot of these kids. It's not the whole world. There's a much bigger life outside of the online web. But my main point is at 12 and whatnot, like it's an age where it should be stress-free, worryless, no responsibilities. Most kids get to about 15, 16, just zero responsibilities, I say. By that age in Australia, that's when you're allowed to pick up jobs younger, but it's not until 15 or so is when you're really allowed to start handling money. I'm not saying kids younger don't work, they still work, but legally they're just not allowed to handle money. But besides that, yeah, do whatever. I'm saying that's the average age that I think most kids go out there and start finding jobs where they start accumulating responsibility. But before then, yeah, come on, kids shouldn't have to be. But it is, and it's happening. Just something to be wary of. That's all. Keep a lookout for it. Kids younger and younger these days kids are already easily influenced, but it's much easier to be influenced now because the whole world's an oyster. Internet's a big place.
Because there are many kids who have likely been missing these figures, and they're also from before the pandemic. Like, that was its own horror show, especially on young people. But according to a March study from the HHS, from 2016 to 2020, the number of kids 3 to 17 diagnosed with anxiety rose by 29% and depression by 27%. And unsurprising, especially given the last story we talked about, that same panel just last month also recommended for the first time that all adults 65 and under be screened for anxiety as well. Though, notably here, those recommendations for adults have not yet been finalized. But back to the kids, because while experts have applauded this formalization of the recommendation for them, a number are pointing out flaws like, first of all, even if pediatricians opt to follow this guidance, experts note that the screening tools don't actually provide a diagnosis, but only indicate if a child may need additional care, which, a key thing here, is where we run into some trouble. Because right now, there is a massive nationwide shortage of mental health professionals who are trained to help these kids. So we're gonna have to wait to see if the industry changes to meet this new demand, though I think it's an important demand to take seriously. Right? Having an idea of a kid's mental health, a battle that they're going to face their whole lives. To do that at an early enough age, that's gonna help a ton of people. And if I was given the tools when I was a kid that I didn't really get until I was like 32, I can't even fully comprehend the quality of life changes I would have experienced along the way. And then, I want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's show, Established Titles. Established Titles is based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies in English. Actually saved over 170 acres of woodlands in different parts of Scotland and planted over 2 million trees globally with Trees for the Future alone. And you get to change your name to Lord or Lady if you want to. And it makes an amazing last-minute gift. Plus, Established Titles is running a massive sale, and when you go to establishedtitles.com/Franco and use code DeFranco, you get an additional 10% off. And then, Mark Zuckerberg wants to stare directly into your eyes, and he's gonna make you pay for it, is the weirdest way I could bring up the Meta Quest Pro and the future of VR and mixed reality. But when it comes to VR, there's been this debate of, is it this random side thing, or is it genuinely the future? I've used some of the higher-end VR stuff for gaming. I also have something kind of more casual, which was the Quest 2. I've used it to play some games during the pandemic. Me and a few guys would get together and watch like a horror movie every week. There's this one program that like has you in a virtual movie theater. But there is this belief that this could be also not only the future of gaming, but also socialization and work. And that's largely where the mixed VR comes in. And so with that, Meta just announced the Quest Pro. It's got a new processor, new screen, the design's different. It also has inward-facing cameras for eye and face tracking, as well as a color video feed for mixed reality. With the idea for that being, hey, you could sit down at your desk at home, you put on this thing, and maybe you can see your laptop screen in front of you, definitely your keyboard, and then everything else perhaps is maybe VR. So instead of needing real-world extra monitors, all of a sudden you're moving stuff in virtual reality. You got 17,000 screens, and then with a swipe of your hand, all of them go away, and you're at a meeting, or you're at a table with the other writers or editors or whatever the fuck your job is. There was even an announcement that Microsoft partnered with Meta to bring Teams, Office, Windows, and Xbox to VR, and all of this notably happening before Apple announces their rumored VR AR device in 2023. Also, on that note, I gotta give some props to the interviewer at The Verge that talked to Zuckerberg around this. He asked this question to Zuckerberg that was essentially like, do you find it strange or like kind of random that, you know, Apple kneecapped your ad business right before you guys dove into this new space together? And initially, Zuckerberg gives, you know, the PR answer of like, there's no way to know, but then
it's certainly plausible that, you know, that they kind of see this coming. sentiment. I do think that I think one thing that's been pretty clear is that their motives in doing the things that they're doing are not as altruistic as they claim them to be. You know, I'm sure that they believe at some level in the things that they're doing and think that they're good for their customers, but it can't just be a coincidence that it also aligns very well with their strategy.
But ultimately, as far as is this specific device the future, I don't know. The interviewer even mentions to Zuck they tried the device, the mixed reality, their keyboard was fuzzy, which isn't a great thing to hear. I tested some of the mixed VR on the Quest 2, and that was a little clunky. Price tag is obviously a massive jump. I think Quest 2 is $399. This is coming in around $1,500. Zuckerberg in the interview talked about the hundreds of millions of people that buy a new PC every year, so they're kind of seeing it in that price point, which I think could make sense, except for one fact. Even with this being the Pro, the battery life is actually worse than the Quest 2, clocking in at just 1 to 2 hours, though I guess the pushback there would be you could just keep it wired while you're at your desk. So will I try this out? Yes, but that's because the price point for me specifically isn't intimidating, but I'm not everyone, and I'm in a position where I get to try it out and then convey my opinion to you. So we'll see. I'm of two minds when we talk about mixed reality and work. There's part of my brain that loves it because while I love most of the things about work from home, I do actually miss seeing people in person and having in-person conversations. Zoom or any kind of thing like that is a subpar experience where you can't get that eye-to-eye connection. Your eyes are usually like darting from webcam to screen, but also the idea of wearing this fucking headset all day, it seems horrible. I don't know. Time will tell, and Zuckerberg and Meta have made a massive bet, which either is going to play out for them or be absolutely fucking devastating. But when only the olds are using your social media service and all these new companies like TikTok are eating your lunch, yeah, it makes sense why you try and pivot. And then, if you're a gig worker or you use gig workers, everything might be about to change for you. Because yesterday, the Labor Department announced a proposed rule that would pave the way for millions of workers to be classified as employees instead of independent contractors. If the rule gets approved, it would grant sweeping federal protections like minimum wage, overtime, and healthcare benefits to tons of people. I mean, we're talking ride-share, delivery drivers, to janitors and construction workers. And specifically, what this proposal would do is basically create a test to determine whether certain workers should be classified as employees or contractors based on a series of factors. This includes things like how much control and autonomy a worker has over how they do their job and the opportunities they're given to make more money, such as offering new services. Notably, this new rule would also reverse another put in place by Trump that made it easier for gig companies to classify workers as independent contractors, with Biden's rule effectively lowering the bar for who could be classified as an employee, which, if it goes through, I mean, that's absolutely massive. That would be one of the biggest shifts in federal labor laws in my lifetime for millions of Americans, and it also has the potential to seriously disrupt the companies that they work for, because this has been a raging debate for years now. You've had industry leaders like Uber and Lyft repeatedly arguing that being a contractor gives people more flexibility and that the model is flexible among their workers, and claiming that if they had to treat their drivers as employees, it would completely fuck them. They wouldn't be able to pay their drivers, the cost would get too high, with some officials estimating that the cost of labor could rise as much as 20 to 30%. But on the other side of this, you have many labor activists and experts arguing that the only reason those labor costs would go up so much is because these companies are exploiting their workers and denying them protections to reduce their own costs, while also at the same time paying hundreds of millions of dollars that they could use to pay those workers to instead lobby against legislation that would make them employees. Well, all these workers, they're not a monolith, right? They all have different opinions. Many have complained about long hours, irregular pay, changes to the apps that affect their livelihood without their say. And beyond that, some experts have also said there's nothing about full employment that would prevent these companies from still giving workers similar flexibility. And also, beyond that debate, there are a lot of criticisms around the current system that results in worker misclassification, with the National Employment Law Project, a pro-worker think tank, estimating that as many as 30% of workers may be wrongly categorized as independent, which, hey, this is one way to get the government on their side. Not only does that lower the pay that workers get, it also costs states billions of dollars in tax revenue. Or they just told the government, there's oil in them hills. So you have many applauding this proposed rule, but also the likes of Lyft and Uber kind of downplaying the proposal, expressing optimism that it wouldn't exactly undermine the gig economy model, and claiming, hey, this is basically just a restore an Obama-era rule that didn't reclassify drivers. But the market so far has apparently felt otherwise, because gig economy stocks plummeted following this news, with Lyft and Uber both seeing drops of more than 10%, though some have recouped some of their losses as of recording. And as far as what happens next, it has to go through the regulatory process, which includes a 45-day period for public comment. And notably, even if it does go into effect, it will likely be subject to legal challenges. And then, governments are corrupt. It's just a question of how corrupt. And when it comes to the United States, it turns out at least 20%, at least if we try to quantify it in this specific way. Because that percentage is the big takeaway from the Wall Street Journal, which obtained financial disclosure forms for around 12,000 federal officials between 2016 and 2021. They found that more than 1 in 5 senior officials, or over 2,600 officials across 50 agencies, disclosed investments in companies while those same companies were lobbying their agencies. We've got FDA officials owning banned food and and drug stocks, SEC officials owning banned financial stocks, EPA officials owning oil and gas stocks, all the way down the list. And to look at a very specific case, officials in the Pentagon's office of the Secretary reported collectively owning between 1.2 million and 3.4 million of stock in aerospace and defense companies on average each year. We also know that over 1,800 officials owned or traded stocks from Meta, Google, Apple, or Amazon, just as the government had ramped up scrutiny of big tech. And if you're wondering, how could this happen? Are there not rules here, Phil? Well, the answer is yes, but sometimes when agencies discover a conflict of interest, they simply waive the rules. With the journal finding that in most instances that it identified, ethics officials certified that the employees had complied with the rules, which have several exemptions that allow officials to actually hold stock that conflicts with their agency's work. And when ethics officials do see a potential violation, they refer to their agency's inspector general, who then refer to the Justice Department if they find evidence of wrongdoing. But a journal review found that inspector generals rarely investigated conflicts, and when something is referred to the DOJ, prosecutors usually decline to open an investigation. Now, on one hand, and it's an incredibly fucking shitty thing to say, but it is true, this isn't exactly news because we already knew that lots of high-level people were intimately tied to the industry. I just told one administration fact: Trump's cabinet was notoriously full of fossil fuel lobbyists, Goldman Sachs executives, defense contractors, you know, people who know how to drain that swamp and I guess replace it with their own swamp. But also understand it wasn't just like a Trump administration thing. I think that was just kind of the most blatant example. But on the other hand, this is still incredibly important news. Just because it's known fuckery doesn't make it not fuckery. And it puts numbers, which are incredibly concerning numbers, behind that either generally vague feeling or very specific feeling towards like a Nancy Pelosi type. And it shows us that shit's fucked up despite all the smoke and mirrors. Like, you have a ruling class that doesn't give a fuck about like what would be appropriate. And understand, these numbers are probably optimistic. That is ultimately where that story and today's show ends. Thank you for being a part of my daily dive in the news, and maybe even being a part of that conversation in the comments down below. If you need more news, although who fucking needs more news? This is your daily dose of poison. But if you electronically, he pled guilty, had to pay a $2,100 fine, and he got sentenced to 3 weeks in jail. And then finally, the legal trouble wasn't just in Singapore. Rather, we got updates to the lawsuit against Meta and OnlyFans. Right, earlier this year, adult content creators accused Meta executives of accepting bribes from OnlyFans to get competitors blacklisted, right, and doing this by flagging competitors' content for security threats. And now, the names of 3 of those executives were accidentally revealed for a report from Gizmodo. With those executives including Nick Clegg, Meta's vice president of global policy, Nicola Mendelsohn, vice president of the global business team, as well as another employee named Christian Perella, who LinkedIn identifies as a Facebook trust and safety director. As for how those names got leaked, OnlyFans' parent company said that it accidentally unredacted them in a filing and had asked for the document to be deleted, or with the other filings having referred to them as John Doe's. Now, for their part, Meta has denied the allegations, as has OnlyFans, but it is an ongoing case. We're gonna have to see what happens, because this is also not the only lawsuit of its kind at play right now. There's also this separate lawsuit from OnlyFans rival FanCentro with very similar allegations. And then, I want to tell you about this amazing, brave badass that you've maybe never heard about, though some of you definitely have. His name was Takahashi Kazuki. He's the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! And unfortunately, I have to use the past tense because he mysteriously drowned back in July. But this week, we got new revelations, and they are as amazing as they are heartbreaking. It was revealed during an interview that he died while saving people from a dangerous riptide. So on July 4th, a U.S. Army major was teaching a diving class on the beach where Takahashi was visiting. The major heard a woman cry out for help because her daughter and another U.S. officer were caught in the riptide, so he and Takahashi jumped into the water, with ultimately both people saved, as well as the mother, who was swept out before making it back to shore. But several people said that they saw Takahashi struggle against the 6-foot waves and ultimately disappear beneath them, with his body being found 2 days later by the Japanese Coast Guard. And in his interview, the major praised Takahashi for his actions, saying, "He's a hero. He died trying to save someone else." And since this revelation, many of the manga artist fans have been saying the same, saying he'll mostly be remembered for his influence on an entire generation of kids, but he should definitely be remembered as a goddamn hero. While there's nothing that can bring us back because we all are headed to the same place, I really do believe what we do, what we try to do, the stories that we create to connect to other people, and the stories that are told about us, those live past us. Those shape the world, and even with heartbreaking reminders like this, I think it reminds us to try to live a life and do things to make your life a story worth telling. And then, let's talk about Alex Jones. A jury ordered Jones yesterday to pay 8 victims' families and 1 first responder a whopping $965 million. That, the result of the second Sandy Hook defamation trial, and if you add on the $49 million that he was made to pay 2 families after the first trial, we're talking over $1 billion of damages so far. So we saw the victims' families finally letting out a sigh of relief in the courtroom after a decade of conspiracy-driven harassment and threats. Some seen crying or hugging their attorneys who helped them get to this moment, as well as Robbie Parker, a father who lost his daughter Emily during the shooting and whom Jones called a crisis actor, saying he has a message for Jones's followers.
For anybody that still chooses to listen to that man, just ask yourself, what has he ever given you? And compare that to whatever it is that he's taken from you.
But also, let me be clear about a key thing here. This is not the end of Jones's punishments. This verdict is for compensatory damages, and the judge is still yet to determine punitive damages, including first whether Jones has to pay any, and if so, how much, which remains uncertain, though Connecticut law caps punitive damages at attorney's fees and litigation costs, so it's unlikely there's another billion-dollar bomb coming down the pipes. You've also got another victim's family bringing Jones to a third trial down in Texas later this year. But another key takeaway is that even with the damages dished out so far, nobody's sure really how much of them Jones can actually afford to pay. But if you ask Jones himself, he'll say it's impossible according to his business filing for bankruptcy recently, though that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually bankrupt. And even during his show where he actually reacted to a live stream of the verdict, he laughed and asked,
It's like they believe all their own stuff.
calling the plaintiffs ambulance chasers.
Normally, the whole ab exercise would be separate in itself. I normally do one extra workout. I'll see how I feel after this last set. But this is the last set though, so... I'll see, only because I did shoulders yesterday, so I don't feel like doing supporting muscle. I'll see how I feel.
And mocking the verdict like it was something out of Oprah.
57 million, 20 million, 50 million, 80 million, 100 million, blah, blah. You get $1 million, you get 100 million, you get 50 million.
And hey, it is extremely unlikely Jones has the money to pay all these damages, though the family's attorneys say they will chase him to the ends of the earth and make him pay every last dollar. Meanwhile, you got Jones's lawyers saying they're going to appeal the verdict, but regardless, this is a huge, huge thing. And the final thing that I want to touch on today, because I've seen Jones starting the beginning of his kind of like media rounds to try and whitewash this incident, and that's something that might prove very effective because, you know, you look back, it's so far away. What did he say? I can't remember. I saw a clip today of him once again being like, I didn't do any of this, which is why I think it's important to showcase some of the shit that he was saying. And in fact, Andrew over at Channel 5 did just that with his Alex Jones interview about 2 weeks ago. You know, he does this thing where he lets Alex talk and Alex tries to recreate history, and then just in the edit, he plays this.
I simply question things, and they're trying to demonize me to say questioning things is a bad deal. And elementary school massacre, 26 dead, 27 dead now, 18 kids in Connecticut. When you got small children, this really gets to you. That's why the globalists use children's deaths to go after our guns, because they know it gets to us. So don't ever think the globalists that have hijacked this country wouldn't stage something like this. They kill little kids all day, every day. And it's not our government, it's the globalist. I really think they're going to try to come after the guns. It's going to start a civil war. I clearly believe from the evidence, children were really killed in Sandy Hook, and it's a real tragedy. Unfortunately, evidence is beginning to come out. People who've been coached, people who've been given cue cards, people who are behaving like actors. I dropped Billy off and watched him go around the corner, and he never came back, all because of the guns. Won't you just turn your guns in for my son? I mean, folks, we've got video of Anderson Cooper with clear blue screen out there. Nothing can account for what happens to his nose. Early on, I said, well, they had to have killed somebody. I mean, this doesn't make sense. Then parents come out and start laughing and then turn to the camera and cry. No one died in 2012 in Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. I couldn't believe it at first. I knew they had actors there, clearly, but I thought they killed some real kids. And it just shows how bold they are.
But yeah, ultimately we're gonna have to wait to see how all this happens, and in the meantime, yeah, it appears that Alex Jones is gonna be doing the rounds, and it also appeared that he's even trying to fundraise off of this, so that's interesting. And then holidays have a funny way of sneaking up on you, and if you haven't started preparing for the chaos of holiday mailing and shipping, you're already falling behind. That's why I want to talk about today's sponsor, Stamps.com/Phil. You know, when you're running a small business, every second counts, and you can't afford to waste a single moment. Like, we're all busy enough as is, and personally, I love how convenient and cost-effective this is for me and my business. I can get all the mailing and shipping done without even leaving my house. Plus, you can print official U.S. postage from your computer 24/7. No special supplies or equipment needed. With inflation on the rise, every single dollar counts. And with Stamps.com/Phil, you get exclusive discounts on post office rates. We're talking like 30% off USPS rates and 86% off UPS rates. Simply put, Stamps.com saves me time and money, freeing me up to spend more.
Hey Bandy on Twitch. I'm gonna call you Bandy, just make that a bit easier. I'm up to my last set today. I might do a few more sit-ups and I'll leave it at that. Reaching the hour mark. Normally my workouts only take about an hour unless I'm feeling extra lazy. How are you, Bandy? How are you today? Also, I'm listening to music and random news in the background.
more time to produce this show, make the next drop, spend more time with my family, and just live life. I prefer working to live, not the other way around. So hey, get ahead of the holiday chaos this year and go to stamps.com/Phil to get a 4-week trial plus free postage in a digital scale. There's no risk, no long-term commitments, no contracts, and never go to the post office again. And then, here's your tasty, tasty midterm poison. Let me make one of the unsexiest pieces of news, at least consumable because it matters. So right now, based off of polling from 538, the Democrats have a 2 in 3 chance of actually holding the Senate, whereas in the House, Republicans have a 7 in 10 chance of flipping it. And according to a new poll from CNN, Republicans have a slight edge in the most competitive and closely watched district. And that's the key thing, in those specific competitive and closely watched districts. Right? Because according to the survey, 48% of the likely voters in those competitive races, they prefer the Republican candidate, while 43% support the Democrat. And in those very close elections, 55% of registered Republicans say they are extremely motivated to head to the polls compared to just 45% of Democrats. I want to point that out because the nationwide polling here can be very misleading. Or when you look at all districts nationwide, it actually looks good for Democrats, with 50% of likely voters saying that they back the Democrat in their district versus 47% who support the Republican. Although, I mean, just on a generally disheartening note, 4 in 10 voters, including more than 60% of independents, they say they don't think the candidate in either party has a clear plan for solving the country's problems. Also, something that was very eye-opening is what mattered to voters. Or think in your head right now, what are the top 3 most important things when you're thinking about who you're voting for? Feel free to pause for a second. And then let's see if it matches up, right? So the survey showed that the economy remains the most important topic for both registered and likely voters. With that, very notably being followed up by voting rights and election integrity, as well as an inflation. And an incredibly significant thing here is that abortion is actually listed as less important, falling below even gun policies for both demographics and even below immigration for likely voters. And for Democrats and I think pro-choice independents, I think that could also just be having a lack of faith in politicians, right? Not believing that if the Democrats somehow held the House and they had the numbers needed to abolish the filibuster in the Senate, that they would actually do it and codify abortion rights. But yeah, ultimately that's the state of things, a little bit of my take. Of course, I'd love to know your thoughts. These midterms are going to be very interesting to watch. Like I said, if you have not already done it, go to headcount.org and make sure you're still registered, come up with a voting plan, be a part of the process. Because in addition to a lot of big lie candidates being on ballots, there are really concerning reports about how Stop the Steal supporters are training thousands of U.S. poll observers. And some of them are even advising these people to ignore local election rules. So yeah, you either face the challenges of the times or you turn your back to it and what happens, happens. And then I want to talk about John Fetterman, the Senate candidate out in PA. Side note, thank you to the Eagles offense for keeping me alive this fantasy football season. Just throw it some more to A.J. Brown is all I ask. But I want to talk about Fetterman right now because he's in this extremely tight race with the Wizard of Oz. And the race is kind of based on a few key issues right now: criminal justice, abortion, inflation, opioids, and Fetterman's health. Right back in May, he suffered a stroke caused by a heart condition. But Fetterman reassured voters that he was on the road toward full recovery, that he had no cognitive damage, and that he would jump right back on the campaign trail after resting. Within the next month, his doctor putting out a letter backing that up and saying, if he does what I've told him, and I do believe that he is taking his recovery and his health very seriously this time, he should be able to campaign and serve in the U.S. Senate without a problem. But his Republican opponents and the captain of Crudité have still attacked his health, criticizing him for not releasing any more medical records since then and not letting journalists interview his physicians. Though Fetterman maintains that if anything changes in his condition, he'll give an update, but until then, it's not necessary. Which now leads us to the big news, everyone talking about his appearance on NBC this week, which was his first sit-down interview since the stroke. And in that, reporter Dasha Burns grills him on whether he's fit to serve in Congress, saying that he seemed to have trouble engaging in small talk before the camera started rolling, with Fetterman explaining that it's an auditory processing issue, which makes it hard to hear what people are saying clearly at times, which is why he had Burns' questions displayed on a computer in real time as captions. But still, you had NBC highlighting this moment where he fumbles a word, kind of really leaning into stuff like this.
I always thought I was pretty empathetic, emphatic. I think I was very, empathetic. That's an example of the stroke, empathetic. I always thought I was very empathetic before having a stroke. But now, after having that stroke, I really understand, much more kind of the challenges that Americans have day in and day out.
Which, I just have to say, as a side note, if you think that is bad, you should hear all the fucking flubbed lines that get cut out of this show every day. Also with this, we had Fetterman supporters saying, hey, I'd rather have Fetterman kind of flubbing something here or there rather than fucking Dr. Oz, the quack who promoted miracle cures to millions of credulous housewives for years. Also, Fetterman himself stressing the difference between him and Oz, throwing out this jab.
Dr. Oz likes to make fun of me that I might miss a word. But, he's missed, 2 words. and that is a yes or no on the national abortion ban.
But still, with all this, you had Republicans holding up that interview as evidence that Fetterman's cognitive issues preclude him from serving. That then prompting pushback from disability advocates and others who spoke to him. Like one New York Mag reporter who interviewed Fetterman tweeting that his comprehension is not at all impaired. He understands everything. It's just that he reads it and responds in real time, saying it's a hearing and auditory challenge. Others also calling the attacks on him ableist and saying this is just one instance of a bigger pattern of discrimination in politics. And actually with this, and I've only really recently learned this, for people with physical disabilities like this kind of prejudice against them is more prevalent than you'd think. I have a guy on my team, for example, who actually worked with me on this story, and he offered up the opportunity to say, you know, he's blind, and people sometimes assume that that means he's incompetent. Whereas in reality, that's the furthest thing from the truth. He's one of the best people I've ever worked with. And for people with speech pathologies in particular, that experience can be especially frustrating, where you have people seeing communication issues as questionable intelligence or cognitive decline. Even though it's been said that Fetterman is expected to get better and better, and he's using this technology kind of just in the interim as like a walking cane to fully get his stride back, it hasn't stopped Republicans from asserting that he's unfit for office, and also doing so in the fucking most disgusting ways. If you don't remember, a senior communications advisor to Dr. Oz's campaign said, quote, if John Fetterman had ever eaten a vegetable in his life, then maybe he wouldn't have had a major stroke, which I just see as a further confirmation with Oz and in general that you are who you keep around you. And then I watched the final January 6th hearing, so you didn't have to, though I will link to it down below because you should. It started with a committee saying some notable things.
The most striking fact is that all this evidence comes almost entirely from Republicans.
A key lesson of this investigation is this: our institutions only hold when men and women of good faith make them hold, regardless of the political cost. We have no guarantee that these men and women will be in place next time. President Trump knew from unassailable sources that his election fraud claims were false. He admitted he had lost the election. He took actions consistent with that belief. With Chairman Benny Thompson specifically clarifying that this session was not a hearing, but rather a committee business meeting, but that the panel will still present new evidence. While much of the evidence reinforces what we already knew, there were a few interesting findings here. Right, specifically regarding Trump's efforts to overturn the election being premeditated. It went through testimony and documents outlining how many close to Trump encouraged him to embrace lies about mail-in voting ahead of the election. Also playing lots of new testimonies from some of the president's top advisors and senior administration officials who outlined how Trump knew that he had lost the election. This including from aides who said he explicitly acknowledged that he had lost in private conversations, as well as from others who said he had made the acknowledgement implicitly through actions like ordering overseas military withdrawals, implicating he was trying to accomplish final military goals. One of the key and most notable pieces of new information came from the members' efforts to present the potential for violence and how well
now because my cat's been around me for a bit.
Prominent moments of the hearing being the clip of Trump advisor Roger Stone.
I really do suspect it'll still be up in the air. When that happens, the key thing to do is to claim victory. Possession is 9/10 of the law. No, we won. Fuck you. Sorry, over. We won. You're wrong. Fuck you. I said fuck the voter. Let's get right to the violence. I love it. Start smashing pumpkins if you know that.
Members also introduced a lot of new evidence from Secret Service memos that showed that the agency was well aware of the potential for violence. This including communications from December that showed the Secret Service was informed that extremist groups, specifically the Proud Boys, planned to march into D.C. armed on January 6th, with a source explicitly saying their plan is to literally kill people. Please take this tip seriously and investigate further. Other texts and emails further showed that Secret Service agents arrested several Trump supporters carrying assault rifles and pistols in D.C. on January 6th, and members specifically claiming that Trump himself knew the crowd of his supporters were armed and dangerous and heading to the Capitol, saying that Trump and the White House had ample opportunity to try and stop this. The committee then went on to outline how Trump refused to call off the mob, presenting testimonies to establish how Trump for hours refused demands from top advisors and the closest to him to stop the deadly violence as he watched it unfold. The panel then playing previously unseen footage of both Democratic and Republican congressional leaders where they're pleading with the Trump administration to provide resources and help the people in the Capitol. And remember, for the sake of time, I'm trying to condense this, make it consumable, but I can't hit on everything, so I definitely recommend you click the link down below and watch it, even if it's on like 1.75x speed. The last thing that I want to mention with this is what happened at the very end, and that is the fact that the committee closed the session by voting unanimously to subpoena Trump to testify. Now, as far as what happens next, I mean, we're going to have to wait to see the inevitable legal battle over this unprecedented subpoena, but if one thing is clear is that the panel's work is not yet done, and not just on this front, because in her closing remarks, Liz Cheney literally said that the panel has information to consider criminal referrals for multiple individuals. So some big things to keep an eye on. But ultimately, that is where that story and today's show ends. Thank you for watching and subscribing to my daily dives into the news here. If you're looking for more news, I got you with more Philip DeFranco show here, or this brand new channel that's been blowing up for us where I just cover international news. But do what you will, because my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love your face, and I'll see you tomorrow.
you can do more if you want to, but then now you start engaging other muscles. I'm not saying you won't work these areas, but just be careful. Because overworking the quads and the hip flexors can cause issues down the line. Chad is just here watching my form to make sure my shoulder blades just come off and then back down. I've lost count, so now I have to punish myself and do an extra 10. One or two more sets and done.
Not white people. G'day, you good motherfuckers, the Butt Barn here, and let's talk about the beautiful world of TikTok. Now, this video is all about the most insane people that I have found on TikTok, and it is probably the 58th version of this video that I've made. Now, that doesn't suggest to me that I'm running out of content ideas. It more suggests to me that people are absolutely insane. Madness. And TikTok is now the home of this madness. They all moved away from Tumblr and Twitter, and this is where they live right now. Hilarious pronoun videos, hairy underarm women demanding respect, the fat acceptance movement. This is where all of this lives. And it's infecting the minds of the youth. The Chinese government have fucking got us. Anyway, don't worry about World War III. Let's worry about this list. And I hope it makes you laugh. Welcome to Isaac Butterfield Reacts to Woke TikToks, part 408.
Why do people say I hate men? Isn't that just a sexist generalization?
Yes. Yes, it is. Imagine saying that about anybody else, any other skin color, any other sexual minority, any other gender preference, whatever you want to fucking call it. That would be considered a generalization. But because it's about men, saying that you hate all men, it's not. Okay, babe, sounds good. Isn't it a weird thought that if you were an entertainer, a musician, a TikToker, and you made a video saying that you do not hate men, it would actually harbour your career? That is the world we live in right now, and that is horrendous.
Short answer, no. People use the phrase, I hate men. They are not saying, I hate all men on the basis of their gender, or I see any man on the street and I automatically hate him because he's a man.
Okay, I get it now. When you say you hate men, you're actually saying you don't hate men. Yeah, makes complete sense.
That's not what's being said. You actually took the time to, understand context.
Why don't you just not say it? Why don't you just not fucking say it? If you don't want people to think that's what you're saying, stop saying it.
You realize that the phrase I hate men is an exasperated response, typically given after someone describes a scenario where a man is doing something wrong, like abusing people. Similar but not quite equivalent to when you're driving on a highway behind an older person and you go, oh my god, they're driving so slow, I hate old people.
Would you be able to say that if that driver was Asian? Would you be able to say that? Or would that be an unfair generalisation?
Asian, old,
I get what
and
she
female.
She's saying that she hates a lot of men because she's had bad interactions with men. But still, I think that's unfair to say that you hate all of one sex just because you've had bad interactions with some of them. But here's the issue. Everyone says that it's okay for her to say that. But if a man says that he hates all women for the exact same reason, then he is cancelled.
Let's say once when I get to about 110 beats per minute or less,
this is hypocrisy?
Hi, Benji here, and this is why it's important to be inclusive of neo-pronouns.
Oh, fuck. If you don't know what neo-pronouns are, strap yourself in, because you're about to be fucking educated.
This creator is currently facing backlash for educating people on how to use neo-pronouns like frogs.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is how mentally fucked some people are. They genuinely think that their lives would be better and people could relate to them better and they'd have better conversations if people called them frogs. Are we supposed to just accept that people are frogs? No.
I know you want to live in this perfect, gorgeous world, but I do not live in that. I will call you she, or they, or he. Maybe not they. Fucking pick a gender, will you?
You guys probably
But
wondering what
frog,
the heck I'm watching.
fuck off. And if you come up to me and say, please call me frog,
Just the
I'll whisper in your
comedian that
ear,
likes to take the
"Fuck
piss
you
out of the
to
world."
moon.
But we can't claim to support inclusion and freedom for the LGBTQIA+ community if we're not willing to try our best to accommodate something that's as inconsequential to us as using people's pronouns.
Okay, people's pronouns are all about, oh, okay, I feel like I'm a woman, so I want to be called a woman. I'm dressing like a woman, I want to be called a woman, okay, to make me feel better. I get that, happy to use pronouns to make people feel better. This isn't about your gender identity. This hopefully won't get me cancelled. I'm going to say it anyway. You're not a fucking frog! Neo pronouns don't just stop at fucking frogs. There was a young girl who was in Melbourne who was, she thought she was a cat or a wolf or something, and then everybody was saying that she was. Shut up. Shut the fuck up, alright? How is that child supposed to live in the real world when she is being taught by the people around who are supposed to be influencing her for the rest of her life, where they're treating her like she is an animal and pretending that she's an animal, when in fact, she's fucking obviously not. These aren't babies. These are grown fucking dead shits. Anyway, before we go any further, this video is brought to you by the amazing people at Established Titles. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, do you see what this says? It says that I, Isaac Butterfield, am a lord. And you might be asking, how did this bearded dude become a lord? Well, I've been working with the people from Established Titles for a while, and they hooked me up with 1 square foot of land in beautiful Scotland, the mother country. And because it's all a part of Scottish customs, I am now a lord. And you can be a lord too, or a lady. You can be a lady. Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to head to establishedtitles.com today and join the rest of us living out our best lives as lords and ladies. Established.
Alright, that's the last set for today. Thanks for joining, following, chatting, asking me questions. Always happy to answer. It's the basic Monday again. Push-ups, squats, no not squats, jumping lunges. Bit extra on abs, ab wheel crunches and leg raises. I did shoulders on the weekend, so that sort of excused me from doing a bit of extra work, but I am just lazy, to be honest. Looks like I'm working more Wednesday mornings, so it'll be Wednesday afternoons when I'll be streaming on Wednesdays now. My usual Monday to Friday morning workouts will be as per usual. Please check out Cheddar on his Instagram, links there, make him pay some rent. Looking at me like, me work. Anyway, that's it for today. Workout to a century. What am I on to? I think I'm on 96. Yes, 96. So I should hit 100. Oh, camera. It's the chair. There we go. Hopefully I'll hit some 100 sometime next week. Forearm exercises usually on the weekend. I'll probably either play Tekken or Cyberpunk 2077. Man, I need a shave. Anyway, Monday's the day off, so I won't have to do that till tomorrow for work. Let's see. That's it for today. No, stream's back as usual. I missed the day last week because I worked 12 hours on Friday, but I made up on it for Saturday when I was working, did my workout set then. You can probably see that on my VODs. But this week should be back to normal. Unless one of my work colleagues decide that they can't work and I've got to fill in for him, but not bad. Mind that. Just needs more money, really. Anyway, till next time. Catch you guys Wednesday.